really see? Will's got bold, big takes. And let's start with the first one about the team with the best record in the AFC.
Yeah, the Indianapolis Colts, when I look at their schedule here, the wins, Dolphins, Titans, Raiders, Cardinals, lucky with the Broncos. They're overrated at 5-1.
I would disagree with that. I think this is a very good offensive line. They've got a guy who's playing offensive rookie of the year football, and Tyler Warren. Daniel Jones has been absolutely fantastic. I think they got one of the best slot receivers, Josh Downs, in football. The only caveat I'd say is this is the first week this season that this past game against the Cardinals, Daniel Jones this year looked like Daniel Jones of the past. Threw one really bad interception, should have had another one. Is that the blip in the season, or is that a little bit going back to reality?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the 5-1 team, I'm kind of on Will's side. I'm not a believer yet. That schedule is very, very favorable. So, TBD.
You could hate on them all you want because of the teams that they play, but if you've only punted 6 times through 6 games, like there's nothing overrated about you at this point. You're a great. And you can fall back on. You have the leading rusher in the entire NFL. You have a great offensive line led by friend of the show, Quentin Nelson. Like they've got themselves a squad.
There isn't any debate that they're good. The question is, are they like top of the conference kind of good? If the season ended today, they would be the 1 seed in the AFC. Would they be the 1 seed all the other teams were dying to play? I guess Buffalo, the teams that have been there before, Kansas City, those kind of teams.
Who do they get at quarterback? What version of Daniel do they get? Well, if they get the Daniel Jones that we saw for the first 5 weeks, they could be anybody in the conference. If they get the Daniel Jones that we saw against the Cardinals, they can get beat by anybody in the playoffs.
All right, the next one, Sunday night, we got Falcons and Niners. Give me a take on that.
I love this one. Falcons upset the 49ers in San Francisco.
I think anybody that turns on the film and watches the Falcons in their last game knows that this is not a bold take at all. You watch that offensive line, no disrespect.
Absolutely.
You just watch Bijan Robinson run. You watch that offensive line. You watch them. They are the best running team out of 11 personnel than any other team in the NFL. Yeah. They are incredible the way they run wide zone.
Dan, you had their game on Monday night. You and Lewis and the crew were terrific. I have been waiting for Atlanta to look like that. I picked them to win the division every single year, and every year I'm wrong because I sit there and I do the draft, and people tell me Kyle Pitts is a generational talent. Drake London is a generational talent. Bijan Robinson, generational talent. They draft Penix. Their entire offense was picked in the top 6 picks of the draft. Why have they never looked like it? Now they've got the pass rushers that they drafted this year. I feel like this team should be better than it has been.
Well, one, that running back that we see on the screen, he's going to be very much so at the top of the MVP list come November 1. He's absolutely off the charts good, absolutely sensational. I'd say this, if you're an NFC playoff football team, we're talking the Eagles, the Rams, the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, if you can't stop outside zone, you're not going to beat this football team. The way they run it, as good as they run it, as much as they run it with that back, if you can't stop that run, you got a problem.
How ready is the quarterback? He's in his 2nd year. He's only started, you said it on the 7 games or something like that. I think people forget because he played in college for so long. He's still very new in the NFL and didn't start most of last year.
They had 2 question marks coming into the season, the defense and the quarterback. The defense looks unbelievably fast, and they can get after the quarterback.
Right.
Michael Penix is going to have to be better versus man coverage. Right now, he eats up zone coverage. If they see man coverage, he struggles. He's going to have to take that step for that no longer to be a question mark.
I'm with you. If you're wondering where the 2024 Saquon Barkley went, he's in Atlanta, and his name is Bijan Robinson. That's how good he is. And I don't think, people aren't paying as much attention, but that whole offense runs through him. The questions are the same as Dan's around the zone. And Drake London, he's balling as well, but they did a lot of their damage last week against zone coverage when they play man-to-man. We'll see if it picks up.
I like that take. All right, one more on a battle of 2 of the NFC's big boys this weekend.
Lions beat the Bucs by double digits.
Really?
Yes.
Who's buying? You buying that?
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. I love Baker Mayfield. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're the media darling right now. But at some point when you have that many injuries, you're missing both running backs, 3 wide receivers, something's got to give eventually. And then there's always the wounded animal theory. The Lions get upset by the Kansas City Chiefs, or, they were favored, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They should have absolutely beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They go into a wounded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I see them absolutely win this game by multiple touchdowns.
You're not buying it.
I'm not buying it.
Hawks got him as the best team in the NFL.
I got Tampa. I think Baker is playing out of his mind, incredibly confident. There's not a throw he can't make. There's not a throw he doesn't make. No matter what the defense is presented, he's throwing the right pass every time to any wide receiver. I think he continues his tear.
Get the picks up on the screen.
Look at
it.
Look at this ball.
Yeah.
Look at this ball.
Look at this
oh, my gosh, bro.
And shout out Tez Johnson.
Hey, look at him stick the landing.
MVP, Tez Johnson.
Yeah, MVP.
Dan, how about it? How about the Lions? Joe Fortenbaugh said something on here on Friday, kind of opened my eyes, that some of their offensive, people were talking about their offense is even better than last year.
They haven't run the ball great.
The numbers a little inflated based on the teams they've played against, and so far, I see you like the Lions in this game. You like them big?
No, I do not like them big. I like the Lions mainly because of all the injuries in Tampa Bay. What's happening in Tampa right now should not be happening in the NFL. Most offensive line combinations in the league, most receivers that have gotten 10-plus targets in the league, usually that leads to losses. The reason I'm picking Detroit is attached to Tampa's struggles, at least health-wise. I think Detroit, when fully healthy themselves, is the best team in football. The loss to Kansas City, the terrible officiating call to take away Jared Goff's touchdown. That's a bad situation. I think that when healthy, they're the best team in football.
Okay, we'll talk more about them as we go. But there's a situation in the NFL that I have found fascinating, and the conversations we've had here all week have been really interesting, and it's in Miami. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa yesterday apologized for comments that he made after Sunday's loss to the Chargers. By now, I'm sure you've heard them. He questioned whether his teammates were being late for players-only meetings. He went on a long sort of conversation about that. His coach, Mike McDaniel, called his comments misguided on Monday. Yesterday, Tua found himself apologizing. Here's what he said.
I've made a mistake, and I'm owning up to that right now. I've talked to guys on the team about it, talked to the leaders about it. I felt like I let the emotions of the game get to me after the game, and that's something that I can learn from as a leader on this team. And what happens in-house should be protected, and none of that should have gotten out. And so want to publicly apologize about that, want to move forward.
So that's what he said, and it certainly sounds sincere. The problem, well, not the problem. I have found it fascinating. All the former players I've had up here all week, beginning with Teddy Bruschi in that chair on Monday, and then all the way through, how much this resonated with them. So the entire situation, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like making an apology, it shouldn't. If you are the quarterback of a franchise, you should never put your team in a position to have to sit at a podium and apologize for remarks you made earlier in the week. That should always be the thing. He said it. It's got to stay in-house. They should always keep it in-house. But, McDaniels could have done a great job of maybe stopping the bleeding at his press conference. Listen, we're going to back him. We're going to be kumbaya. Handle that internally and then act like it never happened before. This is what happens when you know that a regime is ending, when a team is falling apart, when coaches are going to be changed. I saw it with Ken Wisenhunt my second year. This is just part of the process. This is the dominoes falling. It's
the process is what? Meaning everyone's pointing fingers?
Everyone knows that this head coach is on his way out right now, and all these other players, they're not playing for just themselves anymore. They're playing for the next coach that's going to come in, the following year. Everyone's now putting out their resume. So instead of letting the film talk, they're being like, well, I'm not the problem. This is the problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great take. I think, when I'm looking at what Tua's comments were originally, right, I'm trying to find, okay, what is he actually pointing to? And what he's trying to say is there's a culture there. Whoever he's placing the blame on, whether it's players, whether it's coaches, whether it's front office, he's trying to point to a culture. And I think the reason why people took such offense to it, like across the board, is that, like, Tua, there's been times when you have not played well. When this regime came in, everyone said you weren't the guy, right? And you had some really good seasons, and here you are. And now the other part of that, I would say, is that these are now two cultures that you pointed to and said that they're not right in Miami. At some point, you got to look at yourself as the leader. Because if every culture doesn't work for you, what does that mean?
It sounds and feels like this version of leadership is just uncomfortable for Tua. For the longest time, everybody wanted Tua to be more outspoken and more demonstrative and get away from the Hawaii element of your personality. And then he started to do it this past year. And now we're all like, well, I don't like this version of Tua. And it just feels like he's not playing well enough. They're not winning. He's trying to do the right thing when it comes to leadership and say the right things when it comes to leadership, but it's uncomfortable for him, and now he's apologizing for doing something that maybe is not necessarily who he is, at least that version of who he is leadership-wise.
But on the